In this clip, I'm going to talk about the current transformation of capitalism, which is the transformation of business, society, and self. And I'm going to introduce you to a diagnostic tool that will help you to make sense of some of the deeper systemic structures and blind spots that keep us collectively reenacting results that no one wants. So here's kind of the first step. We'll use an iceberg model, and you have seen iceberg models many times, and it starts with a very simple distinction, which is there's like 10% visible above the waterline, and then there's another 90% that is below the waterline. So if we start with that, what is it that we see above the waterline? In some of the earlier clips, I talked about three types of problem clusters. I talked about the ecological divide, the social divide, and the spiritual divide. And what I mean with ecological divide is a disconnect between self and nature that shows up in many forms of environmental destruction, of resource scarcity, of falling water tables, of climate change, and of soil erosion that we see going on worldwide. And if you want to put a number on the ecological divide, that number is 1.5. Today, we operate a world economy that uses 1.5 planet Earths. We use 1.5 times the regeneration capacity of planet Earth. So that's kind of the big problem here. And it's not going to go away, it's going to get worse, and we need something to do about that. We all know that. Now what's the second problem here? The social divide. What I mean with social divide is a disconnect between self and other. And that disconnect shows up in many different forms of social polarization, of fragmentation, of conflicts, of violence, of inequity, and of poverty. In the United States, the top 1% own more than the bottom 90% combined. And worldwide, we all kind of live in a situation where I feel that we live on a very thin and fragile layer of order that could break up any moment, and in fact is breaking up at an increasing rate, both in the global south and in the global north. So that's number two. But then here's a third one. And the third one basically has to do, the spiritual divide has to do with a disconnect between self and self. And what I mean with disconnect between self and self is a disconnect between who I am today and who I could be tomorrow, between my current self and my emerging future self or my essential self. And if those two selves are no longer talking and listening to each other, what is it that we see? We see increasing rates of burnout, of depression, and of suicide. In 2010, worldwide, more people killed themselves in suicide than were being killed through war, murder, and natural disasters combined. So in spite of all the violence going on in the world, more people kill themselves than are being killed through others. It's a shocking number we have here, and it reminds us, although we don't talk about the spiritual divide, it is as important and as significant than the other two divides that are, of course, much more visible to us. So those are like three big issues that we are dealing with, and we face these issues across all societies really today. The question is, how have we been responding to these issues? Because these are not new issues. They are around for 100+ years. And if we look back to the 20th century, here's how we have responded. In government, we create one or several ministries kind of for each of these problem clusters. In international organizations, we create one or several UN organizations for each of these clusters. In NGO, we create special single-focus NGOs on environmental issues, on social issues, and on cultural issues. And of course, in academia, we have for each of these issues one or several departments. That's how we have been responding. Basically, silo type of approaches that address the problem at the symptom level, not at the root level. And that largely miss the interdependency across these problems. But the question is, when you look at this, what really is below the waterline? What are some of these deeper systemic issues that keep us reenacting these types of problems time and again? And before I move on, I want to give you a minute to take a pen, to take a piece of paper, and to write down what is your answer, what is your current thinking about what are some of these deeper systemic issues. What do you think is it that makes us collectively today worldwide reenacting results that nobody wants? Think about your top 3 root issues that you believe are at the source of us collectively creating results that nobody wants.